Where are we starting? I notice this is like in the middle
Number
of.
at verse 26.
Oh, okay. This one.
Yeah, it's chapter 22, verse
Okay, very good.
26. All
All
right.
righty.
Yeah, do you want to read, Ruth?
I'll start. Sure. The
Okay,
Eternal
there you
One
go.
spoke to Moses, saying, when an ox or a sheep or a goat is born, it shall stay 7 days with its mother, and from the eighth day on it shall be acceptable as an offering by fire to the Eternal. However, no animal from the herd or from the flock shall be slaughtered on the same day with its young. When your sacrifice, when you sacrifice a thanksgiving offering to the eternal sacrifice, if so that it may be acceptable in your favor, it shall be eaten on the same day. You shall not leave any of it until morning. I am the eternal. You shall faithfully observe my commandments. I am the eternal. You shall not profane my holy name, that I may be sanctified in the midst of the Israelite people. I, the eternal, who sanctified you. Whoops. What's it? I just lost you. Wait a minute. Hold on. You shall
Move too
faithfully
quickly,
observe my
Gary.
commandments. I am the eternal. You shall not profane my holy name, that I may be sanctified to the midst of the Israelite people. I, the eternal, who sanctify you. I, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I, the eternal. Now you can go up. Okay. On the 6 days work may be done, but on the seventh day there shall be a Sabbath of complete rest, a sacred occasion. You shall do no work. It shall be a Sabbath of the eternal throughout your settlements. These are the set times of the eternal, the sacred occasions which you shall celebrate, each at an appointed time. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at twilight, there shall be a Passover offering to the eternal. And on the 15th day of that month, the eternal's feast of unleavened bread. You shall eat unleavened bread for 7 days. On the first day, you shall celebrate a sacred occasion. You shall not work at your occupations. 7 days you shall make offerings by fire to the eternal. The seventh day shall be a sacred occasion. You shall not work at your occupations. The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelite people and say to them, when you enter the land that I am giving to you, and you reap its harvest, you shall bring the first sheaf of your harvest to the priest. He shall elevate the sheaf before the Eternal for acceptance in your behalf. The priest shall elevate it on the day after the Sabbath. On the day that you elevate the sheaf, you shall offer as a burnt offering to the Eternal a lamb of the first year without blemish. The meal offering with it shall be 2/10 of a measure of choice flour with oil mixed in it, an offering by fire, a pleasing odor to the Eternal. And the libation with it shall be of wine, a quarter of, whoops, you keep on doing that, and I lose, when you push it up, I lose it. Wait a minute. Where was I? Until you brought offering, you should eat no bread of parched grain. Wait, no, the meal offering with it shall be 2/10 of measure of choice flour with oil mixed in it, an offering by fire of pleasing odor to the Eternal. And the libation with it shall be wine, a quarter of hin. Until that very day, until you have brought the offering of your God, you shall eat no bread of parched grain or fresh ears, as it is a law for all time throughout the ages in all your settlements. And from the day in which you bring the sheaf of elevation offering, the day after the Sabbath, you shall count off 7 weeks. They must be complete. You must count until the day after the seventh week. 50 days, then you shall bring an offering of new grain to the Eternal. You shall bring from your settlements 2 loaves of bread as an elevation offering. Each shall be made of 2/10 of a measure of choice flour, baked after leavening as first fruits to the Eternal. With the bread you shall present as burnt offerings to the Eternal. 7 yearly. What's that? Okay. With the bread you shall present as burnt offerings to the Eternal. 7 yearling lambs without blemish, 1 bull of the herd, and 2 rams with their meal offering and libation and offering by fire of pleasing odor to the Eternal. You shall also offer 1 he goat as a purgation offering, and 2 yearling lambs as a sacrifice of well-being. The priest shall elevate the 2 lambs together with the bread of first fruits as an elevation offering before the Eternal. They shall be holy to the Eternal for the priest. On the same day you shall hold a celebration. It shall be a sacred occasion for you. You shall not work at your occupations. This is a law for all time in all your settlements throughout the ages. I want to stop here because all of this that we are writing about, I thought only happened when we had the temple. But if they're saying we're supposed to still do this throughout the ages, I'm a little confused. Hello? Is anybody there?
I don't know. I don't know.
See, this can, I've always read this as, okay, all these sacrifices and libation and all this stuff was during the time of the temple. But once the temple was destroyed, and now it's saying right here, this is a law for all time and all settlements throughout the ages. So now I'm confused. Okay, yeah. Because I was reading this like, okay, yeah, I know all this stuff.
But I think it's more, I think of it, but still, I think it's not, well, it's the idea that there are set times, like, for set things, like it, you know what I mean? Like,
oh, I understand it, but not all the stuff that they just mentioned.
no,
We don't do
but
these offerings. Okay, yeah.
No, I'm saying we don't do all of that, but I'm saying like the bigger meaning, I think, that
Okay,
we
so
could take now.
so, but that's
Yeah,
hard. Okay, if I really want to follow this and listen to it,
Yeah.
and understand it, then I want to know what like, you know, we're supposed to follow the Sabbath. I know that we don't do it the way
but
that,
they still used to build altars to offer sacrifices to the Eternal before they had the temple,
okay.
right? They
So,
always did.
yeah, so, but so when I'm trying to understand, okay, but when the temple was destroyed, I was told that all this stuff was meaningless as far as us doing this today. We don't do this. We don't do this today.
No, not a lot of those things. No, but we still read about it. It's still, we don't erase it from the Torah.
No.
Yeah.
I know. I understand that. I don't know. But I'm just trying to understand what we're observant of. We're observant of the Shabbat. We're observant of kosher, supposedly. I'm not
We
saying
do it in
you are or you're not, but I'm just
We
saying.
do it in different ways. Like we will celebrate Sukkot, but we don't take the harvest, the fruits of our harvest to the, you know what I mean?
Okay, all right.
You know,
So
we do it, we observe it,
Yeah.
you know, in
Okay.
a different way. But
Okay. It was just.
I think the
Please.
bigger meaning though is from all these. I mean, obviously, like these are the set times of the eternal.
Right. Okay. So this is what's happening at this time of the year, is what you're saying. Okay.
In the sense that no matter what goes on in your life, that there are certain times that you have to stop and do something at a set time,
Right.
like, you know, to make
Okay.
certain things important. You,
Okay.
that's just the way I see it, but I don't know. But yeah, I mean, we don't do the ritual sacrifices, but they definitely, before the temple existed, they used to build an altar to offer,
Uh-huh.
you know.
If they did ritual sacrifice, you'd never see me in the synagogue again, period.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Not going.
Dr. Ed's a hematologist. He wouldn't mind seeing all that blood and stuff like that
Well,
sprinkling.
well, understand that that was food too.
Yeah.
Right.
Zach, I came in late, so I don't know where you're at. So
Oh, okay. We're
We got to
covering
read
stuff
the,
for Sukkot. We're covering
we got to read
Sukkot
the,
reading.
yeah, from Leviticus, like about all the festivals and stuff.
yeah, I'm sorry. People
But-
still, my phone hasn't stopped today. People think I'm a public health expert. Phone hasn't
Yeah.
stopped. Has not
Aren't you?
stopped today. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyways, do you want me to continue reading here now?
Yeah, but what Ed's saying is true too, though. But I'm saying because that was the other thing too. I mean, that was how the priests, like that was like that was what sustained them and the Levi, you know, from the
I understand.
sacrifices.
No, I understand now. I do.
Yeah. All right. Well, you could, if you want to still read, you can. I don't remember where we were, but
I finished that throughout the ages. I'm starting 22
Okay.
now.
there you
And
go.
I'll finish
Okay.
off a few more and then I'll give it to someone else, okay?
Cool.
And when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap all the way to the edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger, and the Eternal am your God. The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelite people, thus in the 7th month, on the 1st day of the month, you shall observe complete rest, a sacred occasion commemorated with loud blasts. You shall
By
not work.
Dr. Ed Weiner's shofar.
Yes, of course. You shall not work at your occupations, and you shall bring an offering by fire to the Eternal. The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, mark the 10th day of the 7th month is the Day of Atonement. It shall be a sacred occasion for you. You shall practice self-denial, and you shall bring an offering by fire to the Eternal. You shall do no work throughout the day, for it is a day of atonement in which expiation is made on your behalf before the Eternal your God. And your God. Indeed, any person who does not practice self-denial throughout the day shall be cut off from kin. And whoever does my work throughout that day, I will cause that person to perish from among the people. Do not work whatever. I'll just finish this up. It is a law for all time throughout the ages in all your settlements. It shall be a Sabbath of complete rest for you, and you shall practice self-denial on the 9th day of the month at evening, from evening to evening. You shall observe this, your Sabbath. Okay, if somebody else wants to take over, they can.
That Sabbath shall also be ended with a blast by a shofar of Dr. Ed
Right.
Weiner.
And you know, it's kind of interesting here because I never understood the fact that you leave your corners for the poor and for the stranger. But I have three huge cranberry bogs, three huge areas, and it's almost impossible unless you really work is to get the corners of the fields. And what they're saying is they say, it's a lot of work for you to get in there and get the corners and to harvest the corners. Leave them. If somebody really needs that food, they'll get in and they'll get it. So I think that it's something that I have just not only observed, but now I know about. I can see what the issue is. The issue is don't kill yourself and get to it, because the hungry will get in and get it. It's a lot of work to get it out.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's like everything, like you see, like you could find how do I say it? Like some of these things that you say, why do we do this? Like, but there's a reason, like, like you talk about uh some of the rules of kashrut because they were worried about like trichinosis and stuff like that. There were reasons for it. It wasn't put in here just like, we read it and say, oh, that seems kind of, why would that,
And I will
It's
tell
just,
you, it's not easy to harvest the corners of your crops. It's just impossible. It's very, very difficult. Those four corners, and our farmers leave it. And let me tell you, by the people who come to my place and who come and stop, I let them take it. They go in the corners and get all those cranberries, and there are hundreds of pounds in each left in each bog.
that's
Anyway.
cool. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, does who else would like to pick up where Ruthie left off?
I can read.
All right, Monique.
Um, we're on 33, right?
Yes.
The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, say to the Israelite people, on the 15th day of the 7th month, there shall be the feast of booths to the Eternal to last 7 days. The first day shall be a sacred occasion. You shall not work at your occupations. 7 days you shall bring offerings by fire to the Eternal. On the 8th day you shall observe a sacred occasion and bring an offering by fire to the Eternal. It is a solemn gathering. You shall not work at your occupations. Those are the set times of the Eternal that you shall celebrate as sacred occasions, bringing offerings by fire to the Eternal, burnt offerings, meal offerings, sacrifices, and libations on each day, what is proper to do. Apart from the Sabbaths of the Eternal, and apart from your gifts, and from all your votive offerings, and from all your free will offerings that you give to the Eternal. Mark on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the yield of your land, you shall observe the festival of the Eternal. to last 7 days, a complete rest on the first day and a complete rest on the 8th day. On the first day, you shall take the product of Hadar trees, the branches of palm trees, boughs of leafy trees, and willows of the brook, and you shall rejoice before the eternal your God 7 days. You shall observe it as a festival of the eternal for 7 days in the year. You shall observe it in the 7th month as a law for all times throughout the ages. You shall live in booths 7 days. All citizens of Israel shall live in booths, in order that future generations may know that I made the Israelite people live in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt, I, the eternal your God. So Moses declared to the Israelites the set times of the eternal. The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, command the Israelite people to
Actually, well, I was gonna say, I'm sorry, Monique. That's actually where we end. This is where the this reading ends for this for Sukkot.
Oh, for Sukkot, yeah.
Yeah, that's we end right there. Okay. Does anybody want to discuss anything about that before we take a look at the parasha?
But it's interesting, it goes to show you how so many different people do different customs about sukkahs. But my husband used to actually sleep in the sukkah. Some people don't, but they just ate in it. But my husband used to sleep in it, except
Wow.
on the rainy nights.
You're supposed to, aren't you?
Yeah, you're supposed to, but he didn't like
Yeah.
sleeping there. Because you have to have some opening at the top because you're supposed to be able to see the sky. I don't know if you know
Right.
that or not. But you have to
Yep.
have some opening on the top. And so,
Yep.
that means the rain would be coming into the
Hey, what would have happened back in the days when they would have been doing it,
I know. Well, let's face it. In
Ruth,
those days,
did
they
you-
didn't have those nice houses we have today.
God wants to toughen you
Did you
up.
sleep in the sukkah too?
What'd you say?
Did you sleep in the sukkah too?
No, I preferred the nice warm house. I had a house. I ate in the sukkah every day, but I didn't sleep. Only my husband did. I told him that was where I crossed the line.
Oh, that's great. Oh God.
I was kind of like a wimp about it. I didn't want to sleep outside. It was cold. Believe it or not, I don't know what it is now, but because of the climate change, I remember it was kind of cold and damp on Sukkot in those days. Now it's warm outside, but it was really cold then when we had Sukkot.
But it gets cooler at night, though. You know what I mean? You usually
Yeah,
you're
right.
in the
Yeah, I
sukkah
just
at
remember
night.
it was cooler. I remember we were
Yeah.
wearing sweatshirts a lot, but
Yeah.
you don't do that much since.
Yep.
There really has been a change in the climate. I don't see fall like it used to be. I remember fall would be really here near the end of September. I don't see that anymore.
But I think in terms of what we were reading before, to get back to what we're reading, I think, like you say, like a lot of these things we don't do, but we read about it, like we're aware of it. And,
Right.
like it says, so you're aware of it. So throughout the generations that this, you know what I mean?
That's
So that
true.
we know about it. And I think too, the fact that there are set times, it's just like in your life, you have to set aside special times for things that you just don't like. You talk somebody that you don't talk to for a long time, and you say, "Oh, I'm always busy," or
Yeah.
like you have to set a certain time and do it. You have to make it special and do it. Like there are certain times that God tells us to set aside for special times. Like we're supposed to, no matter what else is going on, you're supposed to. It's cool. I think it is. But I'm crazy.
Can
anyway.
I say something? You
Sure
got me
can.
still dwelling on whether the Temple Teferah Shalom built a sukkah when we merged. And I have a very vague memory, maybe Ed will remember, but I have a vague memory of Jeff Goldsmith and the Brotherhood going out behind the kitchen and
Yep.
building a
Absolutely.
sukkah.
Yeah.
That was that sukkah
That's
was
something
built
else.
when I was president of Brotherhood. When I first became president of
Right.
Brotherhood, I actually picked up all the materials and stuff. And Jeff did build it, and every year. And if I'm not sure, but I think I don't know if they put it in storage, because we have that sukkah outside TTS, right?
Oh, yeah, for a
We
long
did have it.
time. Yeah.
We did
Yeah.
have it for a year or two. And then I think we
I thought it
went
was more.
the
I
other day.
remember, since I remember, I was just a member since 2006. And I thought
We had
every
it
year
since
we,
1995, from
oh,
1995 to
okay. Yeah, because
2015.
since 2006, I've been a member and I remember the
Yeah.
sukkahs every year. I
Yep.
remember it every
Every
year.
year.
Yeah.
The one that was the one that replaced had been built by Ed Flashenberg, I think.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sukkah was, Jeff
It's too bad we
Goldsmith.
don't have one behind. I think every synagogue should have a sukkah
There
behind
probably
it.
will be a better one when we do when the building is
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
they're still doing work on the
Rehabilitated,
building
right.
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
all right. All right, so we'll continue. This isn't a long posture. It's just the last. Moses gives his blessing
Yeah.
to everybody before he dies, and and then we'll be shortly going back to, I think, on October 2nd. Like that's the week that and we usually try to stay a week ahead. So we'll probably next week we'll study Bereshit, because we'll be going back to that anyway now. And like I said, we'll do the related Haftarah. Actually, the Haftarah that goes with this last Pasha is like the first chapter of the book of Joshua. Right where he picks up, right where Moses left off. But would anybody like to volunteer to read this?
I'll be glad to.
All
Nobody
right,
else.
Jordan.
Well, this is the blessing with which Moses, God's envoy, bade the Israelites farewell before he died. He said, "The Eternal came from Sinai and shone upon them from Seir. God appeared from Mount Paran and approached from Rehoboth Kodesh, lightning flashing at them from on the right. Lover, indeed, of the people, their hallowed are all in your hand. They followed in your steps, accepting your pronouncements. When God charged us with the teaching as the heritage of the congregation of Jacob, then God became king of Jeshurun." Wow. When the heads of the people assembled, the tribes of Israel together. May Reuben live and not die, though few be his numbers. And this he said of Judah, "Hear, Eternal One, the voice of Judah, and restore him to his people. Though his own hands strive for him, help him against his foes." And of Levi he said, "Let your Truman and Urim be with your faithful one, whom you tested at Massah, challenged at the waters of Meribah. Who said of his father and mother, I consider them not? His brothers he disregarded, ignored his own children. Your precepts alone they observed, and kept your covenant. They shall teach your laws to Jacob and your instructions to Israel. They shall offer you incense to savor and whole offerings on your altar. Bless, Eternal One, his substance, and favor his undertakings. Smite the loins of his foes. Let his enemies rise no more. Of Benjamin he said, beloved of the Eternal, he rests securely beside God, who protects him always, and he rests between God's shoulders. Wow. And of Joseph he said, blessed of the Eternal be his land, with the bounty of dew from heaven and of the deep that couches below, with the bounteous yield of the sun and the bounteous crop of the moons, with the best from the ancient mountains and the bounty of hills immemorial, with the bounty of earth and its fullness and the favor of the presence in the bush. May these rest on the head of Joseph, on the crown of the elect of his brothers. Like a firstling bull in his majesty, he has horns like the horns of the wild ox. With them he gores the peoples, the ends of the earth, one and all. These are the myriads of Ephraim. Those are the thousands of Manasseh. Wow. And of Zebulun, he said, rejoice, O Zebulun, on your journeys. And Issachar, in your tents, they invite their kin to the mountain where they offer sacrifices of success, for they draw from the riches of the sea and the hidden hoards of the sand. And of God he said, blessed be the one who enlarges God. Poised is he like a lion to tear off arm and scalp. He chose for himself the best, for there is the portion of the revered chieftain, where the heads of the people come. He executed the Eternal's judgments and God's decisions for Israel. And of Dan, he said, Dan is the lion's whelp that leaps forth from Bashan. And of Naphtali, he said, O Naphtali, sated with favor and full of the Eternal's blessing, take possession of the west and south. And of Asher, he said, most blessed of sons be Asher. May he be the favorite of his brothers. May he dip his foot in oil. May your doorbolts be iron and copper, and your security last all your days. Boy, there's security for you. Oh, Jerusalem, there is none like God, riding through the heavens to help you, through the skies in his majesty. The ancient God is a refuge, a support are the arms everlasting. He drove out the enemy before you by his command. Destroy. Thus Israel dwells in safety. Untroubled is Jacob's abode. In a land of grain and wine under heaven's dripping dew, O happy Israel, who is like you, a people delivered by the Eternal? Your protecting shield, your sword triumphant, your enemies shall come cringing before you, and you shall tread on their backs. Wow. Somebody else want to do some reading, or shall I keep writing?
It's up to you if you want to, or does anybody else want to? Or... Cynthia, I see you moving, but I don't hear you.
Oh, wait a
There
minute.
you go.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Very good.
Moses went up to the steps of Moab to Mount Nebo, to the summit of Pisgah, opposite Jericho, and the Eternal showed him the whole land, Gilead as far as Dan, all Naphtali, the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, the whole land of Judah as far as the western sea, the Negeb and the plain, the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees as far as Zoar. And the Eternal said to him, this is the land of which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will assign it to your offspring. I have let you see it with your own eyes, but you shall not cross. So Moses, servant of the Eternal, died there in the land of Moab at the command of the Eternal. God buried him in the valley in the land of Moab near Beth Peor, and no one knows his burial place to this day. 120 years old when he died. His eyes were undimmed and his vigor unabated. And the Israelites bewailed Moses in the steeps of Moab for 30 days. The period of wailing and mourning for Moses came to an end. Now Joshua, son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom, because Moses had laid his hands upon him, and the Israelites heeded him, doing as the Eternal had commanded Moses. Never again did there arise in Israel a prophet like Moses, whom the Eternal singled out face to face. For the various signs and portents that the Eternal sent him to display in the land of Egypt against Pharaoh and all his courtiers and his whole country, and for all the great might and awesome power that Moses displayed before all Israel.
Thank you, Cynthia. And I think there's a problem with your sound a little bit. We could hear you, but you're cutting out a lot.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And here
I
you could. No,
have
that's
to have
not
one
a
of my
problem.
expert children take a look at this.
That's okay. And here you see the words chazak, chazak, v'nit chazak. Right?
Well, I have difficulty
And
hearing on
strength,
it too,
strength.
so I think it needs an expert to look at it.
Yep.
And everybody in the United States is more expert than I am on these computers. So.
I think with this parsha, to me, I'm just a couple of things that I just want to throw out there, and you guys, whatever you want to throw out. I just think it's incredible because as it all ends and everything, You look at Moses, the greatest prophet to never be a prophet like Moses. Just says a lot about ourselves, about having confidence in yourself, and you look at him, I mean, he started out, he wasn't like a willing, he wasn't, he was reluctant. He made all these excuses to God, but, he plunged ahead and he ends up being the greatest prophet. I think that's incredible. And I think also the fact that he didn't enter the land, the way that it describes like that he see the vision that he gets of the land from on top of that mountain is probably a vision that the people, or most of the people entering the land, probably never got that same vision of it like that he got, even though he didn't get to go in. But the way that he got to see it, I don't know how many people did. I mean, I'm just saying, it's pretty interesting. Any other?
What I was thinking about as I was reading the part that I was reading was that was really beautiful, what I was reading. And I just wondered if Shalom was here, if the way that the words were expressed and the choices of language and descriptive words are exactly what Shalom would translate from
Yeah.
Hebrew to English, the way the writers of that section did. 'Cause it was just really, really impressive to read.
Poetry, like real great poetry.
Yeah, exactly.
Moses' last blessing.
Yeah, it sure was amazing. Yeah.
But I think of that, like he didn't get to go into the land, but it's like God, I think, showed it to him in a way, like, he didn't let him go in there, but he let him see it in a way maybe that people that got to go in didn't get to see it, like just a different perspective of it. I don't know. Any thoughts, comments, anything?
Yeah, Charleston Heston did a good job.
That's right. When I was little, I used to think he was Moses. He was great.
Right.
But think of the leadership this guy provided. He was adopted by Pharaoh. He confronted Pharaoh. He killed one of Pharaoh's taskmasters who was beating somebody. He led the Jews out of Israel, out of Egypt, ran them around for 40 years and kept them in line and taught them how to be human beings, and then set up a system of ethics, morality, public health. And when he was ready with God, let them go as mature human beings to the promised land.
Yep.
Walked him right through all of the oil and the Sinai to Israel.
Yep.
But seriously, it's
Yeah.
he did it all. I mean, think of it, from orphan to leader to a man's man to a teacher, prophet. He did it all, and it's called the 5 books of Moses for a reason.
Yep. I honestly always think of that because I've said that like to probably people here, and I say it a lot of times when I attend Bible study at church, that of everything in the Bible, like to me, it's like the 5 books of like everything else just flows from there. Like I personally don't get as much out of. I mean, but I'm interested in, that's part of why I'm interested in reading, I never look at the Haftarah that much, I don't read the books of the prophets, but I really focus, like my whole energy in terms of studying the Bible is on the 5 books of Moses. Because everything else that I read anywhere else or anything else that happens seems to just relate back to it, no matter what it is. I could listen to Jesus, a parable of Jesus, but whatever whatever his message is that he's putting into that parable, it's based on something that's in the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses. It's just the foundation. And you talk about what Moses established. He established it when we're here all these thousands of years later discussing it. So he did do a good job establishing it. It's stuck. It's pretty incredible.